murmured about Jesus because he said, "I am the bread that came down from heaven." And they said, "Is this not Jesus, the son of Joseph? Do we not know his father and mother? How can he say, 'I have come down from heaven'?" Jesus answered and said to them, "Stop murmuring among yourselves. No one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draw him, and I will raise him up on the last day. It is written in the prophets, they shall all be taught by God. Everyone who listens to my Father and learns from him comes to me. Not that anyone has seen the Father except the one who is from God. He has seen the Father. Amen, amen, I say to you, whoever believes has life eternal. I am the bread of life. Your ancestors ate manna in the desert but died. This is the bread that comes down from heaven, that one may eat and never die. I am the living bread come down from heaven. Whoever eats this bread will live forever, and the bread that I will give is my flesh for the life of the world. The Gospel of the Lord. If you have ever been to St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, you know that the first time you walk in, your mouth literally hangs open. First of all is the sheer enormity of the building. This room accommodates 500 people. St. Peter's accommodates 30,000. Bernini, the great Italian architect, did the interior, and everything is scaled to proportion. If you look at our holy water fonts, it's a cherub holding a seashell. At St. Peter's, there are 2 cherubs holding a seashell, but the seashell is practically the size of a bathtub. You look up at the enormous paintings on the ceiling, etc., and it is only when you get up inside the dome and up close that you realize they're not paintings, they are mosaics. Millions of pieces of tiny glass put together to form all those figures and shapes. And then you begin to walk down the nave, and you keep going, and you keep going, and you keep going, and suddenly in the floor is a bronze marker, and it says the Metropolitan Cathedral of Mexico City, Mexico, which is the 2nd largest church in the world. And that plaque is placed where the length of that cathedral would be from the back wall of St. Peter's. And then you turn around and look at all the length you've left behind you. And you keep walking, and there's a plaque for all of the great cathedrals of the world, Notre Dame in Paris, etc., etc. You keep going, and you keep going, and finally you come to a marker in the floor, St. Patrick's Cathedral, New York City. And you realize that St. Patrick's Cathedral, New York City, could fit in St. Peter's, Rome, 3 times. The same thing happens if you go to the great cathedral at Cologne, Germany. It is the largest Gothic cathedral in the world. And when you walk in, you just keep looking up and up and up at the soaring height and the length of the building. And then you look at all the stained glass windows. And with all of those openings in the walls, the weight of the roof would have pushed the walls out and the building would have collapsed. And so the architects build what are called flying buttresses. It's like half of a stone arch that pushes against the building on each side and supports the walls so that they can hold the weight of the roof. When I go into any of those places, I'm lifted sort of ethereally out of the ordinariness of life. Same thing happens when I come into this room. The art, the architecture, the ambiance is different from the world out there. And that is good because we need those places to praise and worship our God. But that's the good feeling side of religion. As I read the Jesus story, I find that Jesus instead gets into the nuts and bolts. Jesus challenges you and me and asks, what would you do if you look into the eyes of a child who is forced to live his life in violence? Or if you look into the eyes of a child who is malnourished or starving? Or what would you do if you look into the eyes of a woman who's been abused? Sister Joan Chittister makes an interesting distinction. She says that some, certainly not all, but some of the right to life people are not really right to life. They are right to birth. They are interested only in that baby being born, and they don't care what happens to that child the rest of the way. Being right to life means that I care that that child is nourished and nurtured and loved and cared for and given opportunities to grow. And that is the gospel of Jesus Christ. Amen.